Assalamu alaikum, warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Healthy greetings, happy greetings, and prosperous greetings. Peace be upon us all. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. All the praises be to Allah, the Lord of the Alamin. Ashhadu alla ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadu Rasulullah. Allahumma sholli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, wala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Friends who are blessed by Allah. There is a very interesting story that we can use as motivation in our lives. Mikhail Gorbachev, a Russian politician and statesman, is famous throughout the world as a leader who brought about major changes in the history of the Soviet Union. The title of this essay invites us to recognize and understand Gorbachev's important role in Russian history. Gorbachev served as General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union from 1985 to 1991. During this period, he initiated a number of controversial and bold reforms in his efforts to reform and modernize the country, improve the economy, strengthen democracy, and create a new climate in the Soviet Union. One of Gorbachev's most famous reforms was perestroika, which was intended to improve the country's deteriorating economic structure. This policy suggested the adoption of capitalist tools in economic management in the Soviet Union. Apart from that, Gorbachev also launched Glasnost, a social reform policy aimed at restoring neglected human rights and allowing freedom of speech and press freedom left over from the Stalin era. However, criticism came as soon as the reform took place. More than that, Gorbachev's reform program actually became the beginning of a reform movement that led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. The public reaction in the Soviet Union was seen in the form of a current of resistance to Gorbachev's reform policies, both internal and external, which made it difficult to implement these policies. However, although there were those who criticized Gorbachev's policies of perestroika and glasnost, many also acknowledged that he had brought about important changes that not only marked a new beginning for the Soviet Union, but also for the entire world. In historical review, some of the inevitable achievements made by Gorbachev include achieving agreements in various negotiations on nuclear disarmament and arms reduction, immediately starting a reform process that eliminated disputes between the Soviet Union bloc and widened the borders of the Soviet Union, leveling discrimination against Russian ethnic minorities, as well as starting the practice of general elections, which is still being practiced by many countries around the world. Apart from that, Gorbachev also received world attention when developing the Soviet Union's foreign relations with Western countries, especially the United States. He met with U.S. President Ronald Reagan and succeeded in signing the INF nuclear agreement in 1987. This was the most difficult agreement in his time in power and showed his support for international mechanisms for resolving conflicts. These actions are very important in reducing tensions in international relations. Despite criticism of Gorbachev in prioritizing state rivalries, the opposition was handled professionally and did not adopt an aggressive tone. Apart from that, he is known as a leader who dares to take risks when conditions are changing. Although his reform policies were widely criticized and ended with the collapse of the Soviet Union, He paved the way for new countries to advance democracy and economic improvement. In conclusion, Gorbachev's reform policies may have attracted criticism in the past, but without him creating a new image of the Soviet Union, in order to successfully try to improve everything in his country. Change and progress might not have occurred in the Soviet Union. Therefore, we must appreciate Gorbachev's achievements as a leader in the Soviet Union and his influence on the international world. The lack of recognition of Gorbachev's achievements, such as his Nobel Peace Prize in 1990, which was considered a cause for concern by some in the international community, should be addressed by encouraging continued interest in the study of leadership in Soviet political history. Friends who are blessed by Allah. That's the motivational story. I hope it's useful. There are shortcomings and errors, please forgive. Thank you and wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.